What's up Top 10 fam, hope you're having an awesome day. I'm your host Ayman Hassan and welcome back to another video. I am so pumped and ready for this video. Like, I love unsolved mysteries. I mean, like, unless they're murders, because like what the hell, the culprits could very much still be out there, still just killing people. But they're also really horrible for the families involved that never got closure and maybe never will. Here are the top 10 creepy unsolved mysteries. Starting us off at number 10 is The Boy in the Box. Back in 1957 in Philadelphia, the case of America's unknown child emerged. The boy was actually found many times before actually being reported to the police. First by a man checking his animal traps, and he refused to report it because he was scared the police would confiscate his traps. Like, hello, priorities, there is a little boy dead there. Forget about your traps. Either way, he was then found by a college student who did end up reporting it the next day. When police finally came to investigate, they found a 4 or 5-year-old naked boy wrapped in a blanket in a cardboard box. His hair had been cut possibly after he died, since clumps of it were still on his body. He was severely malnourished and had suspicious surgical scars on his groin, ankle and chin. There were bruises all over his body, and a cap and a handkerchief were found near his body, the latter which also had an M engraved onto it. Clues, we like clues. No one came forward with any information, but a psychic led them straight to a foster home nearby. Police started speculating the kid had been the son of the owner's stepdaughter. Perhaps the both of them got rid of his body because the daughter was unwed, and so it was just to save her reputation, perhaps, because the kid was her son. Because I mean, it was the 50s, unwed with a baby, that's not a good look, is it? Another theory was that the M could have been a woman called Martha who said her abusive mum had bought the boy from his birth parents 3 years prior. He was abused thoroughly, and one night he didn't eat his dinner, and so the mum slammed his head against the floor till he became unconscious. She then gave him a bath, during which he died. Martha said she helped her mum dump the body, yet Martha herself had a history of mental illness, so it was hard to believe her story or whether it was even real or if it even happened. So really, we just will never know what happened to the boy in the box. Coming in at number 9 is the incident at DYATLOV Pass. So back in February of 1959, 9 ski hikers went on a trip in the Ural Mountains of present-day Russia. On their last night, they had set up camp near a slope and had had dinner before going to bed. It was a routine trip, yet the group never arrived at their final destination, and their fate was never solved. A rescue party was sent out on the 26th, and they managed to find the group's tent. It had somehow been ripped open from the inside, and the outside of it had footprints everywhere. Some were wearing socks, others were wearing a single shoe, some weren't wearing any shoes at all in the freezing weather, which was just suspicious. The party followed the prints, which led them into finding the first 2 bodies. Both were only wearing underwear, and that's literally it. No shoes, no jacket, nothing. Initially, medics thought the cause of death was hypothermia, but as the remaining 7 bodies were found over the next few months, hypothermia just started to make less and less sense. One autopsy showed evidence of blunt force trauma like you'd have in a brutal assault. The person's skull was just completely fractured. 2 of the other bodies had major chest fractures, and to put it into perspective, to cause someone that much damage, the impact would have had to be equivalent to that of a car crash. That is a lot of impact. A lot of damage. Now, the 3 bodies had no external wounds to explain their fractured bones, so how did it happen? One of the bodies with the fractured chest was also missing her tongue, eyes and lips. Another body just had a really high level of radiation on their clothes, whilst the rest of the group did actually die of hypothermia. But the reason what rushed the group out of their tents inadequately dressed that morning remains a mystery. Speculations include some kind of UFO attack, an attack from the indigenous Mansi people, and maybe even a military test gone wrong. Who knows? At number 8, we have the Satanic beheading. Now, back in Feb of 1981, Leroy Carter Jr. was walking through Golden Gate Park looking for a place to sleep. He found a spot near Alvord Lake, got his sleeping bag out, and just hit the hay. The next day, police found Carter's body dead, but there was one thing that made his death stand out, and that was he was decapitated. That feature pointed to a ritual or some voodoo being involved in his death, but background investigation into his life showed no links to the occult whatsoever. His neck was sliced through cleanly, and a chicken wing and 2 corn cobs were found stuffed into his neck. Around his body, police found the mutilated remains of multiple dead chickens, and so a ritualistic sacrifice was all they could think of. After consulting an expert, their theories pointed towards Santeria, which is an Afro-Caribbean religion based on Yoruba traditions and beliefs. Sacrifice plays a major role in their religion, but most rituals involve chickens, not humans, but some underground sects still seek out human victims. After research, investigators figured that the killer had to be back 42 days later to place the head back, and so forces staked out the park as the day approached, yet the killer managed to come and go without being detected. The ritual complete, the culprit was never found, and Leroy's murder was never solved. Filling at number 7 slot are the Salish foot discoveries. This one is just so weird, I don't even get how we haven't figured it out yet, but since the summer of 2007 till now, people have found a total of 20 detached human feet on the coast of the Salish Sea. A Canadian officer claimed that foul play had been ruled out and that the feet must be from either people killed in accidents or by suicide because all the feet had detached via normal decomposition process. Most of the feet were found actually wearing sneakers, which kept them floating and relatively preserved. After the 5th foot was found, the incident started getting a lot more international media attention because, I mean, it's just plain weird. The latest foot that was found was on the 1st of January this year, and they actually did a DNA test and identified the man to have been missing since 2016. So I mean, here's the deal, we're finding a bunch of feet, we don't really know if foul play was involved or not every time, and I suspect we're just gonna continue finding these feet, and that's gonna be that. Now at number 6 is the story of Pauline PICARD. Back in April of 1922, 2-year-old Pauline disappeared from her family farm in France. After search parties yielded no results, Pauline's parents were still hopeful they'd find their baby girl, and they did, or so they thought. Weeks later, a girl matching Pauline's description was seen in Cherbourg, and her mother identified her and went to get her. But after spending 2 hours with Pauline, the parents realized the girl looked exactly like their daughter, but she wasn't her. She didn't recognize her parents, nor did she behave like Pauline. Either way, they still took her home, hoping her memories would return and maybe this was just amnesia. When she got home, even her siblings recognized her as Pauline, and no one was really talking about the fact she was found 200 miles away from her house and how the hell she got there. Like, are we just not gonna talk about that? Elephant in the room much. Either way, Pauline didn't even speak in her native dialect, but as time went on, the parents said she was becoming herself again. But the good news ended quickly because fast forward a month, a cyclist found a body of a little girl near the family's farm, and it was in bad shape. Decomposed as hell, and the hands, feet and head were all missing, and next to the body was a folded outfit. Pauline's mum recognized the clothes as being the same ones Pauline wore the day she went missing, and the location the body was found was searched many times previously, indicating the body had been left there quite recently. Near her body was an adult male head, which clearly did not belong to the decomposed body. So we literally have an imposter girl living on the farm now who isn't Pauline but could be her doppelganger. We have actual Pauline dead near the farm, and we have a random male head. Like, what is happening at this point? How has none of this been solved? Like, where's Pauline? Who is this twin Pauline? Pauline! Coming in at number 5 are the noises. Back in December of 2016, a CIA officer went to the health office in Havana after apparently feeling nauseous, dizzy, and having a headache. Which is, I mean, fair enough, people get sick in the winter, it's no biggie. But 2 days later, 2 other CIA officers reported the same thing. 2 years later, this number had grown to 39 officers, and each victim claimed the symptoms had been triggered by a bizarre noise they'd heard in their hotel rooms or their homes. One claimed it was very high-pitched, almost like a beam of sound had just been pointed into their room. Another person said it was like the sound marbles make when they roll across the floor. The CIA was completely blindsided by this because they hadn't developed any weapon or knew of any weapon that could cause these symptoms, and if anyone would have known about it, it would have been the CIA. Some of the victims had even recorded the sound, but that just made things worse. Scientists analyzing the sound said they were insects, but how could insects lead to symptoms like that? It just doesn't add up. In May of last year, an American worker posted in the US consulate in China was diagnosed with the same thing, so no one knows what's happening, but CIA agents are dropping like flies, which may not even be a bad thing. They have done some pretty messed up throughout the years, just saying. At number 4 is the Tunguska event, and I'm pretty sure I said that wrong, I'm sorry. So back in 1908, 770 square miles of forest in Siberia was just spontaneously flattened by some explosion of some kind, except there was no evidence of an explosion and absolutely no witnesses. Scientists called it the largest impact event in history, and an impact event is basically an impact between 2 astronomical objects, aka an asteroid and the Earth. Except with an impact event, there's usually an impact crater, which there wasn't. Scientists have only been able to speculate what happened, like maybe an asteroid exploded over the Earth, not on it, and the resulting explosion was just the after effect. Maybe it was the airburst of a meteoroid, we literally have no clue. They were just a bunch of forests that got flattened, and we're just gonna leave it at that, apparently. Filling our number 3 slot are the Hinterkaifeck murders. Back in March of 1922, in Weidhofen, Germany, the 7 people living on the Hinterkaifeck farm were all found dead. But things were already getting creepy leading up to the incident. Days beforehand, the maid of the family quit, claiming she felt the house was haunted. The father found a bizarre newspaper in the house that no one had bought, and he had also found footprints leading to their machine room outside, yet no one was in there and no one had gone in there. At night, the family would hear footsteps in the attic despite finding no one there, and so a ghost inhabitant was very much possible. The new maid Maria arrived, and that day 4 family members were believed to have been lured to the family barn and then murdered by a mattock. The killer then went into the house where he killed 3 more people, and all the bodies were discovered a full 4 days after the murders. The family failed to show up at church, the kids were absent from school, and the postman realized the family's mail had been there from a few days ago. Eventually, the village guide went to the house and entered the barn and found the bodies. During the investigation, the weapon was nowhere to be found, and after the autopsies were done, they found out that one of the children was actually alive for hours after her assault. She had pulled out her hair in tufts while laying in the straw in her own blood. People speculate someone actually did kill everyone, whereas others think it could have been the ghostly presence that had something to do with it. Honestly, who knows? I feel like it could have been a possession of some kind, because why would the little girl be pulling out her hair after she was assaulted? Like, unless she was possessed? I don't know. Now at number 2 are the Circleville letters. At the end of the 1700s, the citizens of Circleville, Ohio were under attack by a serial author. Locals around town started getting anonymous letters filled with intimate details about their lives and how the author was supposedly watching them. The worst victim of this was a woman called Mary Giuseppe. She was the bus driver of one of the schools and was having an affair with the superintendent. The letter said things like, "I know where you live, I can hurt your children," and soon after, Mary's husband Ron even got a letter about it, and soon the whole town was rife with rumors. 2 weeks later, she got another letter saying she'd done nothing since the last one and that she had to inform the school board, otherwise the author would expose her on CBS and etc. Why are they going to that much effort to expose her? I don't understand. The letters then stopped till Ron got a call which infuriated him so much he left the house with a gun, got into his car and never came back. His car was found crashed into a tree, Ron was dead and the gun had been fired, yet the receiver of that bullet is still a mystery. Mary and the superintendent ended up getting married later on, and the writer was hell-bent on embarrassing her by posting signs and posters of it all around town. Like, this guy really has it for her. One time she got so frustrated she went to rip off a poster and found it attached to a string, which she followed and was led to a box with a gun pointing right at her. The gun got traced to her brother-in-law Paul, and he was put in jail for being the writer. Case closed, everyone in town breathed a sigh of relief now that the guy had been caught, yet while he was in jail, Paul received his own letter. And nothing's been solved ever since. And finally, at number 1 is Susan Powell. Now this case has so many twists and turns, I was struggling to keep up, but here goes nothing, you guys better keep up. Susan disappeared on the 6th of December back in 2009, and a decade later is yet to be found. Susan was married to a man named Joshua, and the couple had 2 kids, but there were marital problems, they were intense, and they were plenty. Susan and the 2 boys went to church on the 6th, and the whole family were reported missing the next day. Police broke into the house to find nothing out of the blue except 2 fans blowing a newly cleaned couch dry. Joshua came home that same day with the boys, saying he had taken the boys camping while Susan was asleep and had just returned. Now here's where things get sus. Now why the hell would Joshua take his kids camping after midnight in the winter when he's meant to be at work hours later? Not only that, but when the couple initially got married, they lived in Joshua's family home, where his dad Stephen grew an infatuation with Susan. He would follow her around, around, record her, steal her underwear, etc. And she even wrote in her will that her death may not be an accident even though it looks like one. When police started investigating, they found no evidence of the camp Joshua described. They found Susan's phone in his van, they found Susan's blood on the floor of the house, and at this point Josh is looking like the culprit 100%. When police spoke to one of the sons, he said that the camping trip did happen, but their mum had gone with them but hadn't come back with them. The other younger son kept drawing pictures of a van at daycare and kept saying mommy was in the trunk of the van. Josh tried to play the whole thing off by saying Susan was having an affair and the two had run off to Brazil to be together. That turned out to be false, and Stephen, Joshua's dad, claimed the two had been in love before she disappeared. Like, these people are throwing Susan under the bus left, right and center, and she's not even alive to defend herself. Police arrested Stephen after finding a bunch of child pornography and tapes of girls that didn't know they were being filmed, including Susan, on his laptop. Her family were all sure that Joshua had something to do with her disappearance, but the case remains unsolved and her body remains missing. And that's it for today's video, guys. I've been your host, Eamon Hassan, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!